Hello again, my dears, and welcome to another close commentary on Odyssey Book 9, this time looking at Episode 3, the Cyclops. For Episodes 1 and 2, the Cocones and the Lotus Eaters, you'll need to see my other video. Let's recap a little bit, shall we? Each of the books in the narrative, as long as they're books 9, 10 and 12, has 3 episodes, each getting more and more supernatural as they progress. In book 9, we've already looked at episode 1, the Cocones, which was not supernatural at all, and episode 2, the Lotus Eaters. Now, in terms of how long they are, you'll have noticed that they're pretty short. The Lotus Eaters didn't even have any similes, and the Cocones only had one. Episode 3 makes up most of Book 9, and there are lots of similes, which we're going to go into detail about later. Book 11 isn't on the syllabus, but also it's more of a quest structure, and it doesn't have 3 episodes, just so you know. Odysseus is the narrator at this point, and we have to beware because he is an unreliable narrator. He wants pathos from the Phaeacians, and so in order to get that, he's probably going to be sacrificing the truth just a little bit, so we can't entirely believe the story. It has certain themes in it. His men are idiots, but he is very clever. Bad things happen when you break Xenia. Some gods love him, and also he is very boastful. He will try and gain kudos at any cost, and some gods hate him a lot. The first 4 are really important, and we've already seen his men be idiots and him be very clever. In episode 1, the Cocones, he sensibly wanted to make a getaway, but his men wanted to hang around and eat and drink and relax, and that ended up with them being mauled by the Cocones' friends the next day. In the second episode, the Lotus Eaters, nothing really bad happens. The potential nostos or homecoming of some of his men is reduced by being given the lotus. However, we could see this as the introduction of the theme of Xenia. The Lotus Eaters do not show good Xenia. Yes, they are feeding their guests, but they're also feeding them something in the knowledge that it's going to have an adverse effect on them, at least from the point of view of Odysseus's men. It's also good to remember that we are off the map here. We are now in unfamiliar territory. That said, Sicily and Crete have both been mooted as being the homes of the Cyclopes. In the Aeneid, Book 3, it suggested that Sicily is in fact the home of Polyphemus. Aeneas actually gets there and meets one of Odysseus's leftover comrades, not actually mentioned in the Odyssey. And it turns out in Crete, apparently, there just is Polyphemus's cave. So that's one to try out on holiday. So now that we're up to speed, let's get going on episode 3, the Cyclops. Insert obligatory dramatic music here. Odysseus continues his narrative. The Cyclopes are a fierce, lawless folk who never have to plant or plough but leave everything to the immortal gods. They have no laws, no legal codes, and in their cave homes, each man is the lord to his own family. So this, of course, is being told by Odysseus to the Phaeacians in hindsight. He does not know in his story that he's about to meet the Cyclopes. Also, it's a massive red flag. They have no laws, no legal codes. That means they probably will not practice Xenia. Not far from the Cyclops Island is a luxuriant goat-filled land. That's right, guys, this is Goat Island, the most completely and utterly forgotten bit of Book 9, Episode 3 by all the students I've ever had. So listen up. The Cyclopes have no ships or shipwrights, or it would make a fine colony for them. There was also a safe harbour and fresh water, Odysseus continues. Some god must have guided us through the foggy night. Not even the moon could be seen. We didn't see the island until we'd run aground. Spooky. Certainly an exciting atmosphere is being built up. When dawn appeared, the nymphs sent the goats running to us. We took out our bows and began shooting. At last, 9 were allotted to each ship, and my men made a special allotment to me of 10. Now, when he talks about the nymphs, this is sort of just like us saying, oh God, or how lucky. He's only suggesting that the nymphs do it because that's less hubristic. And he's also pointing out that, yes, his men love him because he's a great leader. Look how many goats he's been given. All day long we sat down to supplies of rich meat and mellow wine. There's a clanger. Rich meat and mellow wine is often a little signpost that the poet puts in to tell us, now there's some eating and drinking. It's normally followed by a little sting like, when we had put aside our want for eating and drinking, or as soon as dawn appeared, which is another signpost that tells you from the poet that the story is now underway again. As we looked across at the land of the Cyclops, again he doesn't know that's who it is right now, we could see the light of their fires and hear their sheep, so he knows there's something over there. As soon as dawn appeared, I assembled my men. My friends, stay here while I go and find out what kind of men live over there. Savages with no sense of right or wrong, or God-fearing, hospitable folk. Obviously, he's only going over there because if there are savages, he can fight them, kill them, and win kudos. Or if they're not, and they have a sense of right or wrong, he can go over, get guest friendship, get gifts, and gain kudos. I took my ship from the fleet, and my men struck the white surf to the mainland. We made out a cave close to the shore. Large flocks were penned here at night, and around the mouth was a walled yard with tall pines and wide-armed oaks. Yes, he doesn't actually know all that detail, yes, but he's telling us anyway. It was the home of a giant, he adds in hindsight. He pastured his flocks alone, away from all the others, and had no dealings with his neighbours. What a terrible creature he was, unlike any man who eats bread. Eating bread, that's civilised normal people who actually do farming. This guy is not only just a shepherd, which is a simpler form of farming, but he's also a lonely misanthrope. So for Odysseus, he's a viable target, as giants go. I picked out 12 of my best men and took with me a bag of food and a skin of wine. The dark and mellow wine had been given to me by Maron, priest of Apollo, because we had been respectful of his office and had protected his family when we had attacked the Cacones at Ismarus. To this red and honeyed vintage, we would only add 1 cup of wine to 20 of water. This is important. We weren't told it at the time that they sacked the city of the Cacones because it would have slowed down the action. But now we're told that they did indeed get this very special, extremely strong wine. Wonder why it needs to be so strong. All will be revealed. Odysseus then tells the Phaeacians, I had an instant foreboding that we were going to find ourselves at the mercy of some barbarous being of huge strength and size, or with no civilised manners or principles. In hindsight, yes, of course, certainly sounds more dramatic this way. It took us very little time to reach the cave, but we did not find its owner at home, so we went in and looked in amazement at everything. There were baskets laden with cheeses. The folds were thronged with lambs and kids, each age group separately penned. His well-made vessels were swimming with whey. Now, this is not exactly uncivilised. Whoever lives here is certainly a very careful shepherd. Odysseus even says the vessels are well made and all of the lambs and kids are separately penned. There's order here. This isn't just some barbaric monster that lives here. In the exam, this is the sort of thing where you're expected to know all of these details, which is why they're labelled 1, 2 and 3. My men begged me to let them take the cheeses and drive the sheep to the ship. Now this is in fact stealing. So he's right here to say no. And even though it would have been far better to do so, I would not be persuaded. Now, he is acknowledging in hindsight that something bad's about to happen. This raises the tension. But he also admits, I wanted to see the owner and get guest gifts from our host. He admits that he wants kudos, and that is his reason that they do not leave. We lit a fire, made offerings to the gods, helped ourselves to the cheeses, and waited. Now, as Odysseus has gifts ready to exchange, the wine, let's not forget about the wine, this is allowable under the laws of Xenia. Because if the guy had been here, they would have been given food and watered and etc. Then it's okay for them to take it, expecting that when he comes, he won't mind, and then they can exchange guest gifts. At last he came. He was shepherding his flocks and carrying a huge bundle of wood to burn. He threw this down and made such a crash that we retreated into the cave. He then sat down to milk his flock, but first he closed the cave entrance with a huge stone. 22 four-wheeled wagons could not have moved it. Another plot point, and also a bit of exaggeration probably, but he's telling us that's how big a rocket is. They are really trapped. Odysseus goes on. He worked methodically. When he had finished, he relit the fire and spotted us. They'd been hiding in the dark recesses of the cave, watching in silence, and suddenly they are seen. Strangers! Who are you? Where do you come from? Are you traders or pirates? And if you've been consulting your Xenia comic, you will know that this is not the done thing. You've got to welcome guests in as strangers. You've got to feed them, water them, make sure they have a bed for the night, give them a bath if they want it. And only then can you possibly wait for them to give you their name. He is not only breaking that normal code of conduct, but he's also accusing them of being pirates. That's just damn rude. As Odysseus says, our hearts sank, but I managed to speak to him. We are Achaeans on the way back from Troy, driven astray, going the wrong way, the wrong route, as Zeus intended. There is clear subtext here because Odysseus is very clever. We are warriors. You've probably heard of Troy because everyone has. But we are here by accident and we mean no harm. He's also starting to name drop Zeus, which is, as you'll see, quite important. He continues, we are proud to be of Agamemnon's forces. Subtext, we won. We find ourselves at your mercy as suppliants, hoping for hospitality. Subtext, please give us Xenia. Good sir, remember your duty. Subtext, Xenia is your duty. We are suppliants, and Zeus is god of suppliants. Subtext, Xenia, also don't annoy Zeus. Stranger, you must be a fool. We Cyclopes care nothing for Zeus or the rest of the gods. Danger. But where did you moor your ship? Is it near? Don't tell him, Odysseus, it's a trap. Odysseus knows this, it's all right. He was trying to get the better of me, but he could not outwit someone with my experience of the world. Sir, Poseidon has wrecked our ship. We escaped with our lives. This is obviously a lie. They're moored not that far away, but he needs to keep the rest of his crew safe and make sure they have a way of getting away later. To this, the cruel brute made no reply. We haven't seen anything cruel yet, so this word cruel and brute foreshadows what's about to happen next. Instead, he grabbed a couple of my men, dashing their heads against the floor like puppies. Their brains ran out on the ground and soaked the earth. Epic simile. Not only do we have a bit of pathos being created by the pitiful scene here of puppies, innocent tiny creatures being killed, but it also makes us visualise how enormous this man is to be able to pick up the men as if they are tiny puppies. Limb by limb he tore them to pieces, devouring them like a mountain lion. This is gory detail, and also a smaller simile. Mountain lions seem to have been pretty prevalent in Greece, and they probably did a lot of damage to sheep and cattle. So Homer's audience would probably have known what kind of damage is being done there and being able to use their own frame of reference to visualise it. He left nothing, not entrails or flesh or bones, like, say, a normal lion would. While we, weeping, helpless, lifted our hands to Zeus. Aww. They're praying to the god of guests because they're not being treated like guests right now, and it's all they can do. When he had filled his huge stomach with human flesh, washing it down with unwatered milk, blech, barbaric, he stretched out his body among his flocks in the cave and slept. Now that's unexpected, but at least it gives Odysseus time to have a think about what to do next. Odysseus admits that his first thought was a violent one. My first thought was to draw up my courage, creep up, feel for the right place, and stab him above the midriff. But I refrained. We would never have been able to move the great stone blocking the cave entrance. So we were forced to wait for the light of day. Oh, nightmare. As soon as dawn appeared, yes, you've heard that phrase before, the Cyclops relit the fire and milked the ewes and the goats, all in the proper order. After his efficient tasks, he snatched up a couple more of my men and ate them. Then he turned the flock out of the cave opening, replacing the great doorstone with ease, replacing it as though he was just putting the lid on a quiver. That simile is simply there to tell us how powerful and strong the Cyclops is and how easy it is for him to re-block the door, leaving Odysseus and his men again helpless and trapped. I was left with murder in my heart, scheming how to pay him back. If only Athene would grant me my prayer. Athene, as god of wisdom, is going to allow his plan to take place. The best plan I could think of was this. The Cyclops had a huge staff of green olive wood to be used when seasoned. Just so you know, wood plucked from a tree is green. You let it dry out, it becomes seasoned and hard instead of all floppy. To us, it looked like the mast of a 20-oar ship. Man, that's a big ship, so that must be a really big piece of wood. It also gives the audience who understand about ships a bit of visual context. I cut off a fathom's length of the timber, which I handed over to my men to smooth down. Then I sharpened it to a point and hardened it in the fire and hid it under a pile of dung and waited. They're very busy while the Cyclops is out. Now this again is the kind of detail that in the exam you need to know the order of, so visualise it here using the comics to help you. Evening came. The Cyclops herded all of his flocks inside. Either he suspected something or a god told him to, says Odysseus, because this is unusual, shutting us in. He milked his ewes and goats and methodically completed his tasks. And then again snatched up 2 more of my men for his meal. Note that every time that the Cyclops is described as doing something that's even semi-civilized, it's then juxtaposed with his horrific action of murder and basically cannibalism. Yes, he's a Cyclops, not a human, but they look the same. They're both anthropomorphic. So eating a human is kind of cannibalistic, right? I went up to him with an olive bowl of my dark wine and said, "Here, Cyclops, have some wine to wash down that meal of human flesh. I brought it for you as an offering, hoping you would take pity on me and help me on my way home. But your savagery is too much to bear. Stone-hearted man, apparently, how can you ever expect to have a human guest again? You have not behaved right." Now, this is very clever on several levels. 1, he's making himself sound pitiful and lowly. 2, he's pointing out that the Cyclops has not done Xenia correctly and is probably going to get punished by Zeus. Thirdly, he's offering him the wine. He says it's a guest gift, and the Cyclops seems to be so murderous and awful and against Xenia that he'll probably just take the wine anyway, and that is what Odysseus really wants. The Cyclops took it and drank it up, and it gave him such exquisite pleasure that he asked for more. Now, we were told it was 1 cup of wine to 20 cups of water. I want you to picture Ribena at this point. How much water do you put into Ribena? How many parts to how many parts to make it tasty? This is 1 part Ribena to 20 parts water. It's that strong. And this Cyclops only drinks milk. He's not used to this. Guess what's going to happen, guys? Odysseus' plan is working. Give me more. Please, tell me your name right now. I would like to give you a gift to please you. We Cyclopes have wine of our own, made from our own grapes from Zeus's rain and our rich soil. But yours is real nectar and ambrosia. Nectar and ambrosia are food and drink of the gods. So this is kind of ironic because he's sort of a demigod, but still. Do they really have wine? Because if so, why isn't he drinking it? Anyway, 3 times I filled the bowl for him. 3 times the fool drained it to the dregs, the bits left over at the bottom. We don't get that anymore because we filter our wine, but they didn't. At last, when the wine had fuddled his wits, that's what happens to grown-ups who drink wine, children, I spoke to him soothing words. Cyclops, you ask me my name. I'll tell it to you, and in return, you give me the gift you promised. He still wants kudos, damn it. My name is Nobody. That is what I am called by my parents and all my friends. Seeing as right now his parents and friends don't know if he's alive, that's kind of not a lie. But also, this is a really clever ancient Greek pun. Metis means no one, but metis means knowledge. This is clever. He answered me from his cruel heart. Of all his company I shall eat nobody last, and the rest before him. That shall be your gift. Now that is a total reversal of Xenia. Instead of feeding your guests, you eat them. Instead of giving them guest gifts, you promise to eat them. He did get warned. He had hardly spoken before he toppled over and fell face upwards, his great neck twisted to one side, and all-conquering sleep took him. That's a very detailed description of exactly how he fell. Isn't it lucky he didn't fall face down, so that his eye is actually reachable? Plot point. In his drunken stupor, he vomited, and a stream of wine and morsels of men's flesh poured from his throat. Ew! Gory detail. At once, I got our pole and thrust it into the ashes of the fire to make it hot. I gave a word of encouragement to my men, so none would hang back through fear. When the glow from the stake warned me it was about to catch light, basically, it's red hot, I drew it out and my men gathered. A god now inspired them with tremendous courage, probably. We drove the point of the stake into the Cyclops' eye. I used my weight from above to twist it home, like a man boring a ship's timber with a drill which his mates twist with a strap so it spins. That extended simile is all about the visual imagery of plunging the stake into the eye and twisting it. Again, using something that the audience would understand to help visualize it. The blood boiled up around the wood. The scorching heat singed his lids and brow all round, and the roots of his eyeball crackled in the flame. Ugh, gory detail. Like a smith plunging an axe or adze into cold water to quench the hot iron. That epic simile is for the sound imagery of the same movement. We've got such amazing detail here, a visual simile and a sound simile to really emphasize this whole idea of his and make it vivid to the audience. Ew. Time to turn over to the second part of this video to get the rest of the Book 9, Episode 3 commentary.